Good. So welcome. We're going to discuss annual charts. And the annual chart is a very interesting topic. And this, I'm going to explain to you how to do annual charts using a very comprehensive method, which I believe has never been taught before. Usually when people do annual charts, some people do Varshphal. Many people use the Varshphal. Varshphal means the fruits of the year. It's generally considered a Tajika method. That means it came from maybe the Arabic side, Tajikistan, to India. I mean, India has its own kind of annual charts. And most Vedic astrologers are using what's called Tithi Pravesh, which is to do with in India, your birthday is more usually defined in terms of the Tithi. You're born on a certain lunar month on a certain lunar day, which is the Tithi. And all the festivals run on the Tithi because every god was born on a certain Tithi, things like that. It's very powerful, but that's what they do in India mostly. So Tithi Pravesh is very important. Varshphal has, Vedic correlates, we'll see. Then there are other Praveshas, because you see, this is all based on the Panchanga. Jyotish is fundamentally based on the Panchanga. When you check a chart, the first thing you're supposed to look at is the Panchanga. And so, what the Panchanga is there's 5 limbs, Panchanga, 5 limbs. And these 5 limbs are the Vara, which is the day of the week, starting from the sunrise. There is the Tithi, the lunar day. There's the Karana, which is based on a half lunar day. So it's kind of embedded in the Tithi. And then there's the Nakshatra and the Yoga. Nakshatra means Nakshatra of the moon. So the Tithi is the moon minus the sun. It's the relationship of the sun and the moon based on the distance between them. And the Yoga is a combination of the sun and the moon. You add up the 2 longitudes. You add the beginning of Pushya Nakshatra, that gives you the Yoga. It's very interesting. So each one of these Panchanga elements represents some different aspect of your life. So let's have a look at Albert Einstein's chart. And it's very interesting. It's just somebody who has already passed away. He had a very interesting and famous life. Many things happened to him. So it gives us a chance to study, because it's his annual chart. So we're interested in things that happen in the year. Now, each of these methods has a certain starting point. The Varshphal is the solar return. So it's generally around about the same, what we call a birthday in the Western world. And the Tithi Pravesh is somewhere close to that. It could be plus or minus a couple of weeks. Because you have to get the same Tithi with the same solar month. All of these things have the same solar month. The Nakshatra is in that solar month, the same Nakshatra position exactly as a birth, and the Yoga, same Yoga as birth, same solar month. So they're all around the same time, but they're not on the same hour of the same day generally. So what we see here is this is all North Indian. I'll show you later how to quickly change it to South Indian. But it's very trivial. I'll show you now. You just right-click on the anywhere, and then you look down, it says change all charts on page 2. And we go to South. These are South Indian charts. But I'm going to discuss this with the North Indian charts, at least to begin with. So, I mean, I love the South Indian chart also, and the East Indian chart. It's very wonderful. And some people like circle charts, but for my own convenience, we're going to use the North Indian chart to begin with. So here is the Panchanga. This is a table. It's in version 10 of the software. We've got the grid turned on, so you can see how the page is laid out. There's 5 slots across and 2 down. You can have anything up to 10 by 10, depends on the size of your monitor. So here we have the Panchanga, and in this particular Panchanga, we have the elements of the Panchanga and a few other interesting things here. And we have the lords of the various elements. So the Panchanga lords. And also this shows that he was born during Rahu Kalam. How interesting. Rahu Kalam is a great time to be born. Well, I was born in Rahu Kalam. Rahu Kalam is gateway to God, basically. So don't be frightened of it. Anyway, each Kalam is of great importance. It's a very powerful technique, is working with the Kalams. And this is a technique that's just not used. Nobody's using it as far as I know. Some of Pandit Sanjay Rath's people, maybe a little bit. I don't know. People are very frightened of Rahu Kalam. People actually print calendars with just the Rahu Kalam times for the day on it. Really, I mean, if you want to be reminded when to go to the temple, that's useful. But if you don't understand what the Kalams are about, and you don't understand how to use them for your own benefit, all of them have a great utility, and how it works with a natal chart and dasha. I mean, it's a big science. It's a big science, and no one's really taught it. But, you know, we'll get around to that at some point. So anyway, what we're interested here today is the Vara, the Tithi, the Karana, the Nakshatra, and the Yoga. So the Vara is it's connected to the fire element. So it's about your vitality, your status, you know, how much you shine in the world, these sort of things. It's a kind of solar energy. So, you know, it's very much connected to the sun because it's the weekday, you know. It's the cycle of the 7 days of the week. Then we have the Tithi, which is the lunar day. So it's very much to do with the moon. And the moon is a watery planet. So this is the feelings and the emotions and the relationships. You know, all of that is really comes under Tithi. Karana is to do with physical things. It's earth element. And so really it's the stability of things, the solidity of things. And then there's the Nakshatra, which is to do with Vayu, or moon, moving through the sky, basically. So when things are changing fast, it's something connected to the Nakshatra. And then the Yoga is what holds everything together. Yoga is the union. So you know, if life is falling apart, it's a yoga problem. If everything's holding together really well, that's a very positive yoga effect. The Pada, of course, is part of the sub-period of the Nakshatra. So these are the lords here. And this is how he was born. He was born with these things. Vara is Venus. It's a Friday. His Venus is in Pisces, exalted, and it's not combust. And it's in the 10th house. The guy is going to be very famous. And 4 planets say that, and particularly the sun, but the Saturn even, because the Lord of the 9th house, powerful yoga for great success, what we call a Raja Yoga. And Mercury in Pisces ensures that you'll have novel ideas, which, you know, many people won't agree with. When I was briefly working as an astronomer for the Royal Greenwich Observatory. And at that time, the Royal Greenwich Observatory owned this castle, or it was using this castle. I mean, it was a real castle with a moat, and it just looked like a castle, but it had been converted into the headquarters of the astronomy observatory. And we had some very nice telescopes in the grounds, because of course, English castles usually come with large grounds. So it was a lot of fun. It was great. Going to work in the castle, going across the drawbridge and all that. I mean, I think the drawbridge was a permanent fixture, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. But while I was in there, one day I was looking in the library and I discovered this very fat folder. It's like this. And this folder had only articles abusing Einstein. They were all things that were published around the time when he published his special relativity, saying, well, I was all wrong, it was just nonsense. And I mean, it just went on and on. It was just thick. So it just goes to show you, you know, I mean, he just revolutionized in science, and a lot of people, a lot of scientists didn't like it at the time. Of course, they came around later, probably. I should think most of them did. Anyway, Mercury in Pisces helps you have these novel ideas. Sometimes the novel ideas really are too novel. That's why they say Mercury is debilitated. But when it's with exalted Venus, it's going to be fantastic. So there we go. And maybe Saturn helped. I mean, you see, Saturn is the ruler of the 8th house for research. You have Rahu, the research planet, is there with exalted Mars. Is fantastic. See, so a lot of people think this is the combination for Einstein's great research achievements, and it's connected to the 10th house, so he got famous because of it. You see. So anyway, this is all there in the birth chart, and we can see a little bit from here because the Tithi Lord is Saturn, and then the Nakshatra Lord is Mercury, and the Yoga Lord is Mars. So these guys are all combining together in a positive way to make a great life. So Mars, in a way, Mars is the anchor, this exalted Mars, but it's with Rahu. So a life full of changes, but it's all holding together. I mean, he wasn't arrested by the Nazis, even though he took some risks in there, I believe, He didn't get out of, well, I mean, he probably visited Germany a few times after the Nazis came to power. So let's see. Now, basically, the idea is whatever you're studying, so let's say 1905 was what was called his Annus Mirabilis. So that was the year when he published special relativity, he completed his thesis, he published some other big discoveries. So it was just a shock for the whole scientific world. I mean, people were overwhelmed by his achievements, and it was considered his greatest year intellectually, even though later on he came with general relativity, which is, cornerstone of science, really, as it is today. So this is an important year, 1905. Now, the year starts, as I said, around the birthday. So it's things that happen after that and all the way through into the next year until around the next birthday. So what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at the Vara. So what we see, here we had exalted Venus in the 10th house. Here we have Jupiter and Venus in the 5th house. A fantastic combination. Jupiter and Venus are, the two planets of knowledge and wisdom, and they are indicative, according to the Maharishi Jaimini, of insight, great insight. And the Lord Mars has gone to the 12th house, which is the 12th house connects us to the other worlds, to the universe, basically. So Mars is in its own sign in the 12th. So there is that connection. I mean, it's all kind of showing its face, isn't it? And Rahu is aspecting. So the research element has to be there. And it's in the 9th house, which is something that, if Rahu is in the 9th house, there are things we can say which are not so good about it, but it's fantastic if you're going to produce some world-shaking research. That's what's really good about it. So, that's, I think, very important. This is a Varshphal, so I'm kind of sticking to the element Venus. Of course, you can, you read the chart from this Lagna as well, the Lagna Lord's Jupiter with Venus. So this is the thing. The thing is to focus on what's the right things in each chart. So we can get a lot out of the Varshphal chart if we do it this way. But we shouldn't try to read everything from the Varshphal chart. The thing is to use multiple charts. So if we have a question about his relationships, his family life, we should probably be looking at the Tithi Pravesh. So what I've got here is the Tithi Pravesh for 1901, 1902, 1904. These are the 3 years he had children, actually. So, well, actually, that's not strictly true. He had a child at the beginning of 1903. and in 1904 and in 1910. But 1901 was when we believe, he started his relationship with this lady, and that led to the first child, the daughter. But it was before they got married, and either it died or it was given away for adoption. Nobody knows what happened to that child. So what can we see in the 1901 child? Well, we see Saturn. You see, what we're interested in here is mainly Saturn, because it's the lord of the Tithi in the birth chart. So we see Saturn in the house of marriage. So there's something going on connected to marriage. You know, Jupiter and Moon, it looks good. It looks good. So that relationship lasted quite a long time. And then if we go to the 1902 chart, we see Saturn and Jupiter still is a different sign, but it's still in the 7th house. This is when they actually got married. And it was, I think the marriage was right at the beginning of 1903, so it will come under this year. So the child was born. Well, you can see that Mars is the lord of the 5th house. It's in Pisces with the sun. We could just see what the degrees are. Yes, little small, but Mars is totally combusted. It's 16 something and the sun is 17 something. So that's what I was thinking. That's why I looked at the degrees, because that Mars is gone, unfortunately. I mean, it's not strong in Pisces, but it's totally combust. So, I mean, it's just, there's a risk factor in that area. So then we go to 1904. This is when he actually had his first son. And what do we find here? There's nothing in the house of marriage, but we have 3 planets in the 5th house, including the Lord Jupiter. So this is when Hans Albert Einstein was born. And he actually ended up becoming a professor of engineering in America. So he followed his father and into the States and into academia. So he was a very, it worked out really well, we can say. So Ketu can show some kind of genius. Anyway, Ketu is considered a co-lord of Pisces. And then we have the sun. So where's Saturn? Saturn is here in the 3rd house in its own sign, aspecting the 5th house. So there's a desire for offspring. It's coming. And it's all good, really, when we look at it. Then if we go to 1910, the 2nd son was born. And here we find Saturn debilitated in the ascendant. Well, if we look at the 5th house, we find the sun is ruling the 5th house. It's gone with debilitated Mercury in the 12th house. So what does this mean? Well, his son seemed to be doing well at school and all that, but when he got to 21, he developed the symptoms of schizophrenia. I mean, schizophrenia has this. It usually, the child can be brilliant, and then beginning of the 20s, it just comes on strong. This is quite a normal situation, but very sad. So he was then, he had some stints in these institutions. When his father left for America, when in we don't know when he left for the last time, but when he said he was going to America, I think there was harsh words spoken. And after he left, he never saw his son again. Though I think they communicated. I mean, it wasn't like there was no loss of love from Einstein's side, but it was a pretty sad situation. And when his mother died, he lived the rest of his life in an institution and died there. So it's you can see from this chart, it's unfortunately too easy to see, really. The Lord of the Moon is in the 6th house, Mars is with Rahu. I mean, it's problematic. See the ascendant, difficult year. But the point is something happened during the year. He got his son. That's great. But what we see from the chart is something about how the sun will be, what will be the outcome of that. So it's difficult. So anyway, that's the Tithi Pravesh. Now let's look at the Nakshatra Pravesh. So I'll show you how to make a chart. You just click in the space you've got, and NP is enough for Nakshatra Pravesh. And then it asks you which year you want. So I think we're going to do 1933. Okay. So this is the Nakshatra Pravesh for 1933. So what was going on here, what we can see is that, 1933 went to the USA, but he didn't firmly decide to stay in the US until 1935. But in 33, he was offered a position later on in the year. I think he was offered a position with Princeton University, which is what he ultimately accepted. But prior to that, in that year, bad things were happening in Germany, and every Jewish professor, and let's face it, there's lots of highly intelligent Jewish professors, and in Germany there were a lot. So they're all completely scrubbed from the universities. Of course, they would all be killed if they stayed there. So Einstein used his influence, which was considerable, to get many of the German professors positioned in universities in places like England and Turkey, other countries. Those are the ones mentioned in the bio. I think the Turkish took 1,000, and the British Prime Minister sent a representative to Germany to go around and collect them and bring them to England. And really, that's part of why Hitler lost the war, because huge brain drain. See, and so, but it was a very dangerous time for Einstein, because the Nazis raided his apartment, they raided his cottage on the sea, they took his sailboat, there was threatening, very serious threats, hang this guy and all that. And so he realized eventually that, it was far too dangerous to stay in Germany. So he went to the consulate in March, 28th of March. It must have been just the beginning of this year. So he went and renounced his German citizenship in the consulate in Belgium. And then he was roaming about. So if you look at it, actually 1932 is when this really all started. Let's have a look at 1932. We just tap the down button or click here, it'll reduce by 1 year. All right. So what we're interested in is Mercury. And here Mercury we see with Venus in the 10th house, but its lord is Mars, and Mars is with Rahu. So what that means is that Mercury is okay, but the underlying energy is very dangerous and disturbed. It's a kind of feeling of terror, basically. So this was all going on through this 1932 year. And, if we go back to 1933, so what we see, Mercury is now in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter or Ketu. They're both here with Mars. We can say, aspect of Rahu, if we like. But so what we see is that the threat is not quite so frightening. It's frightening, but it's a little bit, you can see some relief. And that's what happened. I mean, 33, eventually. He spent time in England. He got offers from various universities. He spent time here and there. He went to the States. He came back to Europe. But eventually, he accepted this position in 1933 in Princeton. Now, he still didn't settle there. It was like, yeah, I could have other options. There were lots of offers. But in 1935, we don't know exactly which month. But if we look at the 1935, oh, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry. I go clicking cancel. So what we see in 1935 is Mercury is with Saturn in Aquarius. So it's very stable, extremely stable. See, this is what we're looking for. When did he achieve stability? Because inside of him, he said, this is it, I'm staying here. And he never left after that. So this is the fixed sign with the Lord of the fixed sign. And the other Lord, Rahu, has gone to Capricorn. So there's actually really an exchange between Saturn and Rahu. And it's the 9th and 10th houses. So it's Raja Yoga. So it was a great position, a very stable situation. Fantastic. It's exactly what happened, I would say. So this is very helpful. I mean, we only have to look at Mercury really to get a feeling for the drama level and what the drama, the origins of the drama, what kind of drama is going on. So let's see. What are we going to use the yoga for? The yoga can be used for, I mean, we could look at the yoga for, say, 1932. Let's try the Yoga Pravesh for 1932. So here we are, YP will give us the Yoga Pravesh chart. And here we can put 1932. All right, so this is a Yoga Pravesh chart. So these are all the charts that can be used for annual charts, really. And you can have any number of them on the screen. The bigger your monitor, the more charts you can have. So anyway, this is the Yoga Pravesh for 1932. And here we're particularly interested in Mars. Well, Mars is with Rahu in the 8th house. It's Pisces. Is this not quite the same as this one with the nice exalted Mars? This is not great. So what we see, in 1932, dangerous, because the yoga is fragile. You could be, there's a risk, anytime he could have got into serious trouble, he might have been killed. So, and also very unstable, like he didn't have a home, he renounced his citizenship, he didn't belong to any country. They tried to give him citizenship in England, but the parliament wouldn't, they had to pass a bill and the parliament wouldn't pass it. And then all your friends are being mistreated. Their lives are at risk. I mean, you can see it works. I never looked at this chart before, I promise you. This is just the first time. But there you have it. So I think you've got the idea. By the way, I mean, you can enter events easily under the events thing, edit events. You just enter the events. It sorts them chronologically as you enter them. So you can enter them in any order. And you just put a description, the date and time if you want to put a time. And click OK, and it'll all be saved to the disk. And then all those events will be here and with the dates. And if you select one of them, it'll appear as the secondary chart here. See, now it says now Los Angeles. But if we selected this one, you see it's PhD. So if you have a chart on the screen which has this blue heading, then that will show you immediately, or anything, dashas, whatever, it'll show you immediately the event, the chart for the event and all that. So then you can have tables of events, and these tables can be for any dasha. So the default is Vimshotri. But if you click on the table and you just get rid of this search, then you'll see dasha for this. And then you can just choose. And it tells you the little asterisks, particularly these ones, show which are applicable dashas for this chart. And then everything will be changed here. And you can have multiple of these. You're not restricted to only one. You can have multiple with different dashas. Like you can have multiple dashas on the screen. You can put them wherever you like. You can move things around. You can swap things. you hold the shift key down and you just drag with your mouse. So it's very easy. If you have this at the bottom, you can move things around. So anyway, I've introduced you to the annual chart. This is totally new teaching, and I hope you take advantage of it, use it usefully, and give all credit to the rishis for this great contribution that they've made. Thank you very much.